What happens when you open your door to find a courier handing you divorce papers, papers you never saw coming? How could one night of just wanting to feel desired cost me my marriage, my family, and even my reputation? This is how I lost everything by trying to prove I still had options. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Lysandra Vale, and I destroyed my life in the most spectacular way possible. At 34, I thought I had it all figured out. I was a project manager at a successful medical supply company, married to Nathaniel, Nate, a dependable financial analyst who provided for our family. We had an 8-year-old daughter, Mia, who was the light of both our lives. From the outside, we looked perfect. But perfection, as I learned, is just another word for boring. The kitchen felt like a battleground that Tuesday evening. I stood at the granite countertop, watching Nate mechanically eat the dinner I'd spent an hour preparing. His eyes never left his phone, scrolling through work emails with the same intensity he once reserved for looking at me. "How was your day?" I asked, trying to inject some warmth into my voice. "Fine," he mumbled, not looking up. "Johnson wants the quarterly reports by Friday. Might have to work late again." Again. Always again. I set my fork down harder than necessary, the metallic clink echoing in our silent house. "Mia asked me today why Daddy doesn't play with her anymore." That got his attention. Nate's brown eyes finally met mine, and I saw a flicker of guilt cross his face. "I've been busy, Lise. You know that. This promotion. There's always a promotion. Always something more important than us." He sighed, running his hand through his thinning hair. "That's not fair. Everything I do is for this family." "Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're just avoiding us." The words hung between us like a challenge. Nate's jaw tightened, and he pushed back from the table. "I'm going to check on Mia's homework." As he walked away, I felt that familiar ache in my chest, the one that had been growing stronger each month. When was the last time he'd really looked at me? When had he last told me I was beautiful, or touched me without it feeling like an obligation? I pulled out my phone, scrolling through old messages until I found them. The text from Emery Klein, my coworker. We'd exchanged numbers during a work conference 6 months ago, and his messages had started innocent enough. Professional questions about projects, then casual observations about office politics. But lately, they'd become something else. "You looked incredible in that blue dress today. Some guys don't know what they have." "If I had someone like you waiting at home, I'd never work late." "Your husband's an idiot if he doesn't see how amazing you are." I'd never responded to the flirtier messages, but I hadn't deleted them either. They sat in my phone like little ego boosts, reminders that someone still saw me as desirable. "Mommy," Mia's small voice startled me. I quickly closed the messages as my daughter appeared in the kitchen doorway, her dark curls messy from where she'd been lying on her bed. "Yes, sweetheart? Why does Daddy look so sad all the time?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I knelt down to her level, smoothing her hair. "Daddy's just tired from work, baby. He loves you very much." "Does he love you too?" I opened my mouth to give her the automatic reassurance, but the word stuck in my throat. Did he? When was the last time Nate had said he loved me and meant it? "Of course he does," I finally managed. "Now go brush your teeth. It's almost bedtime." As Mia padded away, I looked back at my phone. Emery's latest message was from this afternoon. "Drinks after work tomorrow? You look like you could use someone to talk to." My finger hovered over the keyboard. It would just be drinks. Just conversation with someone who actually seemed interested in what I had to say. Someone who made me feel like I was more than just a wife and mother going through the motions. I started typing. I'd like that. Then I stopped, deleted it, started again. "Lise?" Nate's voice came from the living room. "Have you seen Mia's math book?" I closed the phone quickly, my heart racing as if I'd been caught doing something wrong, which was ridiculous. I hadn't even sent the message. "Check her backpack," I called back, slipping the phone into my pocket. But the seed was planted. As I finished cleaning the kitchen, I couldn't stop thinking about Emery's invitation, about the way he looked at me during meetings, like I was the most interesting person in the room, about how long it had been since anyone had made me feel that way. Later that night, as Nate fell asleep beside me without so much as a goodnight kiss, I made my decision. I pulled out my phone and typed, "Tomorrow sounds perfect. I definitely need someone to talk to." I hit send before I could change my mind. The response came almost immediately. "Can't wait. I know just the place." I stared at the message for a long time, my heart pounding. It was just drinks, just conversation. Nothing wrong with that. But even as I told myself that, I knew I was crossing a line. And the worst part, I didn't care. The next evening, I spent an extra 20 minutes getting ready for drinks with a friend. At least, that's what I told Nate. I chose a black wrap dress that hugged my curves in all the right places, applied makeup with more care than I'd shown in months, and sprayed on the perfume Nate used to say drove him crazy. He didn't even look up when I announced I was leaving. "Don't wait up," I said, pausing in the doorway of his home office. "Jenny from accounting is going through a rough divorce. She needs someone to listen." Nate grunted in acknowledgement, his attention fixed on his computer screen. The lie came so easily it scared me. Emery had chosen an upscale wine bar downtown, the kind of place with dim lighting and intimate booths. I spotted him immediately, tall, lean, with the kind of carefully tousled dark hair that probably took him 20 minutes to achieve. He stood when he saw me, his smile wide and appreciative. "Lysandra, you look absolutely stunning." When was the last time anyone had called me stunning? I felt a flush of pleasure as he helped me into the booth, his hand lingering briefly on my lower back. "Thank you. This place is lovely." "Only the best for you," he signaled the waitress. I took the liberty of ordering a bottle of that Pinot Noir you mentioned liking. I'd never mentioned liking Pinot Noir to him, but I didn't correct him. The attention felt too good. As the wine flowed, so did our conversation. Emery was an excellent listener, asking thoughtful questions about my work, my dreams, my frustrations. He made me feel witty and interesting in a way I'd forgotten I could be. "So tell me," he said, leaning closer across the small table, "what does a woman like you do for fun? Besides work and," he paused meaningfully, "family obligations." The way he said family obligations made it sound like a burden rather than a blessing. I found myself complaining about Nate's long hours, his emotional distance, the way he took me for granted. "You deserve so much better," Emery said, his hand covering mine on the table. "A woman like you should be worshipped, not ignored." His thumb traced small circles on my wrist, and I felt a thrill I hadn't experienced in years. This was dangerous territory, but I didn't pull away. "I should probably head home," I said, though I made no move to leave. "Should you, or do you want to?" The question hung between us, loaded with possibility. I looked at this man who was giving me everything my husband wasn't: attention, desire, appreciation. Would it be so wrong to want more? "One more drink," I heard myself say. Emery's smile was triumphant. By the time I got home, it was nearly midnight. The house was dark except for the porch light Nate had left on. I kicked off my heels and tiptoed upstairs, my head spinning slightly from the wine. Nate was asleep, or pretending to be. I slipped into the bathroom to remove my makeup, catching sight of myself in the mirror. My lipstick was gone, my hair slightly mussed. I looked like a woman who'd been thoroughly flirted with. I looked alive. The next few weeks fell into a pattern. Emery and I found excuses to work together on projects, our professional interactions peppered with meaningful glances and subtle touches. He'd bring me coffee in the mornings, compliment my outfits, make jokes that had me laughing in a way that turned heads. "Someone's in a good mood lately." my sister B commented during one of our weekly phone calls. You sound different. Different how? Happier. More like your old self. Things getting better with Nate. I twisted my wedding ring around my finger. Something like that. The lies were multiplying, but they felt necessary. When Nate asked about my increasingly frequent late nights, I blamed project deadlines. When he questioned the new clothes I'd started buying, I said I deserved to feel good about myself. You're being paranoid, I told him one evening, when he asked about a receipt he'd found in my purse. Dinner for two at an expensive restaurant. It was a business dinner with a client. Since when do I have to account for every penny I spend? He backed down, as he always did. Nate hated confrontation, which made it easy to make him feel like the unreasonable one. But his mother, Carol, was a different story. She'd always been protective of her son, and I could feel her watching me with increasing suspicion during family gatherings. You seem distracted lately, dear, she commented at Sunday dinner, her tone deceptively casual. Everything all right at work? Just busy, I replied, not meeting her eyes. You know how it is. Carol's gaze was sharp. I hope you're not taking on too much. Family should come first. The implication was clear, but I chose to ignore it. Carol had never thought I was good enough for her precious son anyway. It was Marcus, Nate's older brother, who finally confronted me directly. He cornered me in the kitchen while the others were watching football in the living room. I don't know what game you're playing, Lysandra, but you need to stop. Excuse me? I tried to look offended rather than guilty. Nate's miserable. He thinks it's his fault, but I know better. I've seen the way you've been acting, the new clothes, the late nights, the way you barely look at him anymore. You don't know what you're talking about. Marcus stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. I know my brother, and I know when someone's getting ready to hurt him. Don't. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. Nate might be too blind to see what's happening, but I'm not. And neither is Mom. Whatever you're doing, end it, before you destroy your family. I wanted to argue, to deny everything, but something in Marcus's eyes told me he wouldn't believe any lie I told. Instead, I lifted my chin defiantly. My marriage is none of your business. My brother's happiness is absolutely my business. Remember that. That night, as I lay in bed next to Nate's sleeping form, Marcus's words echoed in my head. Was I really ready to destroy my family for what? Some flirtation with a coworker who probably did this with every married woman in the office. But then I remembered how Emery looked at me, how he made me feel. For the first time in years, I felt desirable, interesting, alive. Was I supposed to give that up to go back to being invisible? I reached for my phone, finding Emery's latest message. Can't stop thinking about you. When can I see you again? My fingers moved before my conscience could stop them. Tomorrow night, but somewhere private this time. The response was immediate. My place. I'll cook for you. I closed the phone and stared at the ceiling. I was about to cross a line I could never uncross. And despite every rational thought telling me to stop, I was going to do it anyway. Because for the first time in years, someone wanted me. And that felt more important than everything I was about to lose. The dinner at Emery's apartment changed everything. What started as flirtation became something much more dangerous, and I found myself caught in a web of lies that grew more complex each day. Emery was attentive in a way that felt like a drug. He texted me constantly, sent flowers to my office, and made me feel like the most desirable woman in the world. When we were together, I forgot about the guilt, the lies, the growing distance between Nate and me. But the real world has a way of intruding on fantasy. We should probably be more careful at work, I told Emery one afternoon, as we grabbed coffee in the break room. I'd noticed some of our co-workers exchanging glances when we were together. Careful about what? He asked, moving closer than was strictly professional. We're just colleagues having coffee. Colleagues don't usually look at each other the way you're looking at me right now. His grin was unrepentant. Can't help it. You're irresistible. Emery. I glanced around, but Sandra from HR was definitely watching us from across the room. Relax, beautiful. No one suspects anything. But I was wrong about that. The whispers had already started, and they were about to get much louder. The crisis came during our company's annual client appreciation dinner, a formal affair where spouses were expected to attend. I'd been dreading it for weeks, knowing I'd have to navigate an entire evening with both Nate and Emery in the same room. You look beautiful, Nate said as we got ready, and for a moment I saw a flash of the man I'd fallen in love with. He was wearing his best suit, his hair freshly cut, making an effort in a way he hadn't in months. Thank you, I replied, adjusting my emerald green dress, the one Emery had complimented when I'd worn it to work last week. The hotel ballroom was elegant, filled with my colleagues and their partners. I spotted Emery immediately, looking handsome in a charcoal grey suit, talking to some clients near the bar. Our eyes met across the room, and he gave me a subtle smile that made my stomach flutter. I should go mingle, I told Nate, network a bit. Sure, I'll grab us some drinks. As Nate headed to the bar, I made my way through the crowd, accepting compliments on my dress and making small talk with clients. But I was hyper-aware of Emery's presence, of the way he seemed to be tracking my movements across the room. The trouble started during dinner. I was seated at a table with several colleagues and their spouses, including Janet from accounting and her husband, Mark. The conversation was flowing well until Janet made an offhand comment. Emery's been in such a good mood lately, she said, glancing toward his table. I wonder what's got him so happy. Probably that divorce settlement finally going through, added Tom from marketing. He's been stuck in legal limbo for months. Or maybe he's seeing someone new, suggested Janet's husband with a knowing smile. I've noticed him checking his phone a lot more during meetings. I felt heat rise in my cheeks and took a large sip of wine to cover my reaction. Across the table, I caught Sandra from HR watching me with interest. Speaking of relationships, Sandra said with false casualness, you and Emery have been working together a lot lately, haven't you, Lysandra? The question felt loaded, dangerous. We're on the same project team, I replied carefully. The Morrison account requires a lot of collaboration. Of course, Sandra nodded, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. Professional collaboration. The emphasis on professional made my stomach clench. Did she know? How much had people noticed? I excused myself to the restroom, needing a moment to collect myself. But as I touched up my lipstick, I heard voices from the lounge area, colleagues I recognized but couldn't see. I'm telling you, something's going on between Lysandra and Emery, one voice said. The way they look at each other in meetings. Please. Her poor husband, another voice replied. He seems like such a nice guy. She's playing with fire. Office affairs never end well. Especially when you're married with kids. What is she thinking? I stood frozen in the bathroom stall, my heart pounding. They knew. People were talking, speculating, judging. How long before these whispers reached Nate? When I returned to the table, I found Nate deep in conversation with Mark about market trends. He looked relaxed, happy even, completely unaware that his wife's reputation was being dissected across the room. The evening took a turn for the worse during the dancing portion. The lights had been dimmed, and couples were swaying to soft jazz. Nate had asked me to dance, and for a few minutes, I let myself remember why I'd married him. He was a good man, steady and kind, even if he wasn't particularly exciting. This is nice, he murmured against my ear. We should do this more often. Yeah, I agreed, though my eyes were scanning the room for Emery. I found him at the bar, watching us with an expression I couldn't read. When the song ended, Nate went to get us more drinks, and I found myself gravitating toward Emery, despite every instinct telling me to stay away. Having fun? He asked, his voice low and intimate. It's a lovely evening, I replied formally, aware that we were being observed. You look incredible in that dress. Green is definitely your color. Emery, people are watching. Let them watch. You're allowed to talk to your colleagues. But his hand brushed mine as he reached for his drink, a touch that lasted longer than necessary. From across the room, I saw Sandra nudging Janet, both women watching us with undisguised interest. The final blow came when Nate returned with our drinks. As he approached, Emery leaned closer to me, ostensibly to say something about work, but his proximity was unmistakably intimate. "Lysandra," Nate said, his tone carefully neutral. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your colleague?" There was something in his voice, a tightness I'd never heard before. My stomach dropped as I realized he'd been watching us. "Nate, this is Emery Klein from the Morrison Project. Emery, my husband Nathaniel." The two men shook hands, and I could see Nate taking Emery's measure, noting his expensive suit, his confident smile, the way he looked at me. "Pleasure to meet you," Emery said smoothly. "Your wife is incredibly talented. We couldn't complete this project without her." "I'm sure," Nate replied, his smile not reaching his eyes. "She's been working very hard lately. Lots of late nights." The subtext was clear, and I saw Emery's expression shift slightly. "Well, dedication pays off. Lysandra is one of our most valuable team members." "I bet she is." The tension was thick enough to cut, and I found myself babbling to fill the silence. "We should probably get back to our table. The keynote speaker is starting soon." As we walked away, I could feel Nate's eyes on me, studying my face, my body language. The man who'd been oblivious for months was suddenly paying very close attention. "Nice guy," he said once we were out of earshot. "He's a good colleague." "I'm sure he is. Very attentive." The drive home was silent, but it wasn't the comfortable quiet I was used to. This silence felt charged, dangerous. Nate kept glancing at me, and I could practically hear the wheels turning in his head. "Everything okay?" I finally asked. "Fine. Just thinking." "About what?" He was quiet for so long I thought he wasn't going to answer. Then, "About how different you've seemed lately. Happier. More energetic." "Is that a bad thing?" "No. Just wondering what's changed." I stared out the window, my heart racing. "Nothing's changed. I'm just trying to take better care of myself." "Right. The new clothes, the gym membership, staying late at work, all about taking care of yourself." There was definitely suspicion in his voice now. "Nate, if you have something to say, just say it." "Do I? Have something to say?" The question hung between us like a challenge. I could confess everything, throw myself on his mercy, beg for forgiveness. Or I could maintain the lie, and hope his suspicions would fade. I chose the lie. "I don't know what you're implying, but I don't like it. I'm trying to be a better version of myself, and instead of supporting me, you're acting paranoid and jealous." "Paranoid?" His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "Is that what this is?" "What else would you call it? I have a conversation with a colleague, and suddenly you're interrogating me." "A conversation? Is that what we're calling it?" "What are you suggesting, Nathaniel?" Using his full name was a power play, a way to make him feel like he was overreacting. It had always worked before, making him back down and apologize for doubting me. But this time, he didn't back down. "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just paying attention. Maybe for the first time in a while." When we got home, Nate went straight to his office and closed the door. I could hear him making phone calls, his voice too low for me to make out the words. When I knocked to ask if he wanted tea, he told me he was busy. I went to bed alone, my mind racing. Everything was unraveling, and I wasn't sure how to stop it. My phone buzzed with a text from Emery. "Your husband seems like the jealous type. We should be more careful." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Maybe we should cool things off for a while. His reply was immediate. "If that's what you want, but I'm not giving up on us." Us, as if we were a real couple instead of a married woman and her affair partner. The word should have thrilled me, but instead, It filled me with dread. Because as I lay in my empty bed, listening to Nate's voice through the walls, I realized that us might cost me everything that actually mattered. But by then, it might already be too late. The weeks following the company dinner felt like living in a pressure cooker. Nate's behavior changed dramatically. He became hypervigilant, watching me with the intensity of a detective. The man who used to barely look up from his phone now noticed everything: what I wore, when I left, how long I was gone. "Going to the gym?" he asked one evening as I grabbed my workout bag. "Yes, same as always." "Which gym again?" I paused at the door, my heart skipping. "Fit Life, the one on Maple Street." "Why?" "Just curious. Have a good workout." But something in his tone told me this wasn't casual curiosity. I drove to the gym, actually worked out for an hour, and came home with sweaty clothes and a receipt to prove where I'd been. The paranoia was making me paranoid. At work, things were equally tense. Sandra from HR had started asking pointed questions about project timelines and collaboration methods. Emery and I barely spoke, except when absolutely necessary, but the damage was already done. The office gossip mill had labeled us as an item, and no amount of professional distance was going to change that. "People are still talking," my colleague Janet informed me during lunch. "You might want to request a transfer to a different project." "There's nothing to talk about," I replied stiffly. "Emery and I are colleagues, nothing more." Janet's expression was sympathetic but skeptical. "Lysandra, I like you. We all do. But this situation, it's not going to end well. Trust me." Her words echoed in my head as I returned to my office. I was losing control of the narrative, and worse, I was losing control of my life. The affair that had made me feel powerful and desired was becoming a liability. That evening, I decided to work late legitimately, staying at the office to catch up on actual work rather than meeting Emery. But when I got home at 9 o'clock, I found Nate waiting in the kitchen with a manila folder in front of him. "How was your day?" he asked, his tone conversational. "Long. Lots of catching up to do." I set my purse down and moved toward the refrigerator, trying to appear normal. "Interesting, because I called your office at 7:30. You weren't there." My blood turned to ice. I went to grab dinner. There's that little cafe around the corner from work." "The one that closes at 6? Shit." I turned to face him, my mind scrambling for an explanation. "I meant the diner, the 24-hour place on 5th Street. Nate nodded slowly, opening the manila folder. "That's funny because I drove by there around 8, didn't see your car." "Nate, what is this? Are you following me now?" "Following you? No, Lysandra. I'm trying to figure out why my wife has been lying to me for months." He pulled out a stack of papers from the folder: bank statements, credit card bills, phone records. My heart sank as I realized how much evidence he'd been gathering. "Dinner for 2 at Romano's on March 15th. You told me you were working late that night. Wine bar charges on the corporate credit card. Interesting, since you don't drink wine at business dinners. And my personal favorite." He pulled out a printed screenshot of my phone bill, highlighting dozens of texts to the same number. "Want to guess whose number this is?" I sank into a chair, the weight of my lies finally crushing down on me. "Nate, I can explain." "Can you?" "Because I'd love to hear the explanation for why you've been texting Emery Klein 300 times in the past month." "We work together. Of course we text about projects. At midnight, on weekends, on your anniversary while we were having dinner." That last one hit like a physical blow. I'd forgotten that I'd responded to one of Emery's messages during our anniversary dinner, while Nate was in the bathroom. "You've been building a case against me," I said, trying to sound outraged instead of terrified. "I've been trying to understand why my wife became a stranger, why she started lying about where she goes, who she talks to, what she does with her time." "I haven't been lying." "Stop." His voice was sharp, cutting through my protests. "Just stop, Lysandra. I know about the affair." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. I opened my mouth to deny it, but the look in Nate's eyes told me it was useless. "How long?" he asked quietly. "It's not what you think." "How long?" I closed my eyes, feeling my marriage crumble around me. 2 months. But Nate, it didn't mean anything. It was just 2 months. He repeated the words like he was testing how they sounded. "Our daughter asked me last week why Mommy doesn't love Daddy anymore. 2 months ago, you were already fucking another man." I flinched at the crude language. Nate never swore, especially not at me. "Don't make this about Mia." "Everything is about Mia." His voice rose for the first time, and I heard footsteps upstairs. Our daughter, awakened by the shouting. "She's 8 years old, Lysandra. She knows something's wrong. She knows her mother has checked out of this family." "I never checked out. I'm still here, aren't I?" "Are you? Because for the past 2 months, you've been somewhere else entirely. Planning your next lie, your next secret meeting, your next betrayal." Tears started flowing down my cheeks, but they felt hollow, performative. "I made a mistake. People make mistakes, Nate. It doesn't have to end our marriage. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. This is a choice. You chose him over us, over and over again, for 2 months. I chose feeling wanted. I chose feeling attractive and interesting and alive." The words poured out before I could stop them. "When was the last time you looked at me the way he does? When was the last time you made me feel like I mattered?" Nate stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something die in his eyes. "So this is my fault." "That's not what I said. You just told me you had an affair because I didn't make you feel pretty enough. How is that not my fault?" I realized I'd made a terrible miscalculation. Instead of taking responsibility, I'd blamed him, and now any chance of reconciliation was evaporating. "I didn't mean it like that," I backtracked. "I'm not blaming you. I'm just trying to explain. Don't. Just don't." He stood up, gathering his papers. "I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow we need to discuss what happens next. Nate, please. We can work through this. We can go to counseling, start over. Can we? Because I'm not sure I know who you are anymore. The woman I married wouldn't have done this. She wouldn't have lied to my face for months. She wouldn't have brought another man into our marriage and then blamed me for it." He paused at the kitchen doorway. "I've already contacted a lawyer. Not because I want a divorce, but because I need to protect myself and Mia. You've proven I can't trust you to do that." After he left, I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the evidence of my betrayal spread across the table. Phone bills, credit card statements, a timeline of lies that painted a picture of a woman I barely recognized. My phone buzzed with a text from Emery. "Haven't heard from you today. Everything okay?" I looked at the message for a long time before typing back, "It's over. Don't contact me again." His response was immediate. "What happened? Did he find out?" I turned off the phone without responding. Emery Klein, the man who'd made me feel so alive and desired, suddenly seemed like a stranger. What had I been thinking? What had I thrown away for a few months of attention from a man who was already texting me like I was a problem to be managed? Upstairs, I could hear Nate moving around in the guest room, and I realized this might be the last night we'd spend under the same roof as a married couple. Tomorrow, everything would change. I'd gotten exactly what I thought I wanted. I'd proven that other men still found me attractive and desirable. But the cost was everything that actually mattered. My husband's trust, my daughter's security, and my own integrity. As I sat in my empty kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of my lies, I finally understood what I'd really lost, and it was too late to get any of it back. The next morning brought a new reality I wasn't prepared for. Nate was gone by the time I woke up, along with a suitcase and several important documents from our home safe. He'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "Staying at Marcus's. We'll talk tonight when Mia's at her sleepover." I called in sick to work, unable to face the office gossip and Emery's inevitable attempts to contact me. Instead, I spent the day cleaning the house obsessively, as if scrubbing the baseboards could somehow erase the mess I'd made of my life. My sister B called around noon, her voice bright with false cheer. "Hey, how are things? You sounded weird in your text last night." I'd sent her a rambling message at 2 in the morning, something about needing to talk. Now, in the harsh light of day, I wasn't sure I was ready to confess everything. Things are complicated right now. Complicated how? Is it work stress? It's Nate. We're having some problems. There was a pause. B had always been my confidant, the one person who supported me unconditionally. But I'd been careful not to tell her about Emery, knowing she'd disapprove. "What kind of problems? You guys seemed fine at Mum's birthday dinner last month." "We've been growing apart. He's been so focused on work, so distant. I felt invisible in my own marriage." "Oh, honey, that's tough. But these things happen. You just need to reconnect, maybe go to counseling. I did something stupid, B." The words hung in the air. I could hear her intake of breath, the shift in her tone when she spoke again. "How stupid?" "There's someone else. Was someone else. A coworker. Lysandra." Her voice was flat, disappointed. "Please tell me you didn't." "It wasn't supposed to happen. He made me feel special again, like I mattered." "Jesus Christ, are you serious right now?" B's support was evaporating in real time. "You had an affair?" "It wasn't like that. It was just, we connected. He understood me in a way Nate doesn't. He understood you right into bed, apparently." The judgment in her voice stung. "You don't understand what it's been like, living with someone who barely sees you, who takes you completely for granted." "So you cheat on him? That's your solution?" "I didn't plan it. It just happened." "Affairs don't just happen, Lise. They're a choice, a series of choices. And you made every single one of them." I felt tears starting again. "I thought you'd understand. I thought you'd support me." "I'll always love you, but I can't support this. Nate's a good man. He doesn't deserve this." "What about what I deserve? Don't I deserve to feel wanted and appreciated?" "You deserve to work on your marriage like an adult, instead of running to the first guy who pays you attention." The conversation deteriorated from there. By the time I hung up, it was clear that even my own sister thought I was in the wrong. The isolation was beginning to set in. That evening, I met some friends at our usual coffee shop, hoping for a distraction. But word travels fast in our social circle, and I quickly realized that everyone already knew something was happening. "Where's Nate tonight?" asked my friend Kelly, glancing around as if he might be hiding behind a plant. We're taking some time apart." The three women exchanged glances that spoke volumes. Sarah, who'd been my friend since college, leaned forward with concern. "Liz, there are rumors going around. About you and someone from work." My stomach dropped. "What kind of rumors?" "That you're having an affair, that Nate found out and kicked you out." "He didn't kick me out, and people need to mind their own business." "So it's true?" Kelly's voice was sharp with disappointment. "You're cheating on Nate." "It's complicated." "It's really not," interrupted Monica, who'd been quiet until now. "Either you're faithful to your husband or you're not. You don't understand the situation." "Then explain it," Sarah said. "Because from where we're sitting, it looks like you threw away a good marriage for some office fling." I tried to make them understand about the emotional distance, about feeling neglected and unappreciated, but my explanation sounded hollow, even to my own ears. How do you justify betrayal? How do you make adultery sound reasonable? "Nate's always been there for you," Kelly pointed out. "He supported you through your father's illness, helped you get your current job, never complained when you wanted to go back to school." "He's a good father to Mia," added Monica. "I've seen how he is with her. Patient, loving, involved." "Being a good father doesn't automatically make someone a good husband," I protested. "No, but cheating automatically makes you a bad wife," Sarah shot back. The conversation was spiraling. and I could see I was losing them. These women who'd been my support system for years were looking at me like I was a stranger. Look, I made a mistake, I know that. But marriages go through rough patches. People work through infidelity all the time. Do they? Monica's voice was cold. Because it seems like you're more interested in justifying what you did than actually fixing it. That's not fair. What's not fair is what you did to Nate, what you're doing to Mia. Don't bring my daughter into this. She's already in it. Kelly's voice rose, drawing stares from other customers. She has to live with the consequences of your choices. She has to watch her family fall apart because her mother couldn't keep her legs closed. The crude comment hit like a slap. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. I don't have to listen to this. No, you don't, Sarah agreed. But running away won't change what you did. I left the coffee shop with their disappointed faces burned into my memory. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and cried until my makeup ran in black streams down my cheeks. My phone rang. My father. Sweetheart, Bea called me. She's worried about you. Dad, I can't deal with another lecture right now. I'm not calling to lecture. I'm calling because I love you and I want to help. His gentle tone broke something inside me. I messed up, Dad. I messed up so badly. Tell me what happened. So I did. I told him everything. The loneliness in my marriage, meeting Emery, the affair, Nate finding out. My father listened without judgment, letting me pour out the whole sordid story. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Do you love him? He finally asked. Nate, I don't know anymore. I thought I did, but no, sweetheart. Do you love the other man? The question caught me off guard. Did I love Emery, or had I just been in love with the way he made me feel? I don't think so. Not really. Then what was this about? I wanted to feel wanted again. I wanted to feel alive. And was it worth it, feeling alive for a few months versus losing your family? The question hung in the air. Was it worth it? Looking at the wreckage of my life, my husband's trust destroyed, my friends alienated, my reputation in ruins. The answer was obvious. No, it wasn't worth it. Then you need to figure out how to fix this, if it can be fixed. I don't think it can be, Dad. I think I've lost him for good. Maybe, but you won't know unless you try. And Lysandra, next time you feel invisible in your marriage, try talking to your husband instead of finding another man to make you feel better. After he hung up, I sat in the parking lot for another hour, watching normal people go about their normal lives. People who hadn't destroyed their families for a few months of excitement. When I finally got home, I found Nate's car in the driveway. He was waiting in the kitchen, still in his work clothes, looking exhausted. We need to talk, he said. I nodded, taking the seat across from him at the table where we'd shared thousands of meals, made countless plans, built a life together. I've been thinking about what you said last night, he began, about feeling invisible, unappreciated. Hope fluttered in my chest. Maybe there was still a chance. And you're right, I have been distant. I have been taking you for granted. I've been so focused on providing for this family that I forgot to actually be present for it. Nate, I'm not finished. His voice was firm but not angry. You were right about that, but you were wrong about everything else. Because instead of talking to me about it, instead of giving me a chance to fix it, you went to another man. You shared our problems with him, gave him pieces of yourself that belonged to me. Tears were flowing freely now. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't undo 2 months of lies. Sorry doesn't take back what you gave him. We can start over. We can go to counseling, rebuild the trust. Can we? Because I keep thinking about all those nights you came home to me after being with him. All those times you kissed me good night after kissing him. All those family dinners where you sat across from me and our daughter while planning your next betrayal. Each word was like a knife, cutting away any hope I'd been clinging to. I don't know how to come back from that, Lysandra. I don't know how to look at you without seeing him. Please, I whispered. Please don't give up on us. Nate was quiet for a long time, staring at his hands. When he looked up, his eyes were red but determined. I've filed for separation. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow about the details. Nate, no. I'm asking for primary custody of Mia. Not because I want to keep her from you, but because I need stability for her right now, and I need time to figure out if there's any way forward for us. The words hit me like a physical blow. You can't take my daughter away from me. I'm not taking her away, but I'm protecting her from the chaos you've created, from the gossip and the drama and the uncertainty. This is my home too, our home. Yes, it is, but I can't live here with you right now. I can't pretend everything's normal for Mia's sake while I'm dying inside. He stood up, pulling an envelope from his jacket pocket. These are the separation papers. Read them over. Get a lawyer, if you want. We'll figure out a custody schedule that works for everyone. Where will you go? Marcus found us a rental house across town, close to Mia's school, so her routine doesn't have to change completely. Us. He was taking Mia with him. When? This weekend. While Mia's at her friend's house. It'll be easier for her if we're already settled when she gets back. I watched my husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, walk toward the door. At the threshold, he turned back. For what it's worth, Lysandra, I did love you. I loved you enough to work 60-hour weeks to give you the life you wanted. I loved you enough to trust you completely, even when I probably shouldn't have. Past tense? I whispered. I don't know. That's what I need to figure out. After he left, I sat alone in our kitchen, holding the separation papers with shaking hands. The legal language was cold and clinical, reducing our 8-year marriage to custody schedules and asset division. I'd wanted to feel desired, to prove that other men still wanted me. Mission accomplished. But the cost was everything I'd actually needed. My family, my friends, my reputation, and my self-respect. And unlike the temporary high of an affair, these losses were permanent.